when the cruel dispossession from their own home by their 3 children completely shattered the lives of Papa Adebayo, 72, and his wife Mama Ngozi, 68, they could not have imagined that within a few weeks they would discover a buried house holding the most incredible secret of their lives. For 46 years of marriage, this couple had given absolutely everything for their children. The university education for all 3, the houses they bought them, the businesses they financed, down to the last naira of their savings. But when Papa Adebayo suffered a stroke that left him with walking difficulties, and Mama Ngozi developed diabetes requiring expensive medication, their own children evicted them from the family home, arguing they needed to sell it for their own families. The most devastating moment arrived on a cold morning in March, when their children's lawyer appeared at the door with the eviction order. Papa Adebayo, leaning on his walking stick, and Mama Ngozi, trembling with shock, had to watch as their own belongings were carried out onto the street, while their neighbors watched in silence. The children did not appear that day. They only sent the lawyer with 2 burly men who supervised every movement. The humiliation was so great that Mama Ngozi fainted twice during the process. What they didn't know was that this betrayal would lead them directly to a house buried in the hills of Oyo State, Nigeria, where they would discover an inheritance that would forever change not only their lives, but those of hundreds of people in need. Tell us below in the comments from which city you are listening to us. Click the like button and the subscribe button before continuing with the story. But this tale of abandonment and redemption was only just beginning. As Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi walked through the streets of Ibadan with their 2 worn suitcases, not knowing where to go, a mysterious force guided them towards the hills, where a house, completely buried under decades of earth and vegetation, awaited them. Within those hidden walls, an 80-year-old family secret patiently awaited to transform the deepest suffering into the most extraordinary blessing. The next 90 minutes of this story will reveal how true love, unwavering faith, and divine justice can completely change the destiny of those who have been unjustly abandoned by those they loved most. Papa Adebayo had worked for 43 years as a mechanic in the Ibadan local government workshop. Every morning, from the age of 18 until 61, he would wake up at 5 a.m., prepare his lunch in a rusty metal lunchbox, and walk 20 minutes to the workshop where he repaired the council's vehicles. His hands, permanently stained with grease and oil, had become expert at fixing any engine, no matter how old or damaged. Mama Ngozi, for her part, had dedicated her entire life to raising her 3 children and keeping the home running on a perpetually tight budget. She had occasionally worked washing clothes for affluent families in the city center, but her true calling had been as a mother and wife. The house where they lived for 29 years had been bought with a loan that Papa Adebayo religiously repaid for 15 years, working extra shifts on weekends and selling homemade snacks that Mama Ngozi prepared. It was a simple 2-story house with 3 small bedrooms, a modest living room, and a backyard where Mama Ngozi grew scent leaf, garden eggs, and some tomato plants. The walls were decorated with family photographs, their wedding at the Christ Apostolic Church Cathedral, the first steps of each child, secondary school graduations, university ceremonies for which they had gone deeply into debt. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi's 3 children had all received full university education. Kunle, the eldest, had graduated as a civil engineer with a partial scholarship that his parents supplemented by working day and night. Ada, the middle child, studied business administration at an expensive private university, whose tuition fees Papa Adebayo paid by selling his pickup truck and taking out loans he was still repaying when he retired. Tunde, the youngest, had graduated as a lawyer in Lagos, living in an apartment his parents rented for him for 5 years while he studied. When the children got married, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi sold a plot of land she had inherited from her parents to give them the down payments for their homes. Kunle received 15 million for his house in a new estate in Ibadan. Ada obtained 12 million for an apartment in Osogbo, where she lived with her accountant husband. Tunde, the most ambitious, convinced his parents to lend him 25 million to buy an apartment in Lagos, promising to pay them back with his first lawyer's salary, a promise he never kept. Papa Adebayo's pension as a municipal mechanic was 80,000 monthly, a sum barely enough for food, basic utilities, and the medications both needed for their ailments of old age. Mama Ngozi had developed type 2 diabetes, requiring daily insulin and monthly medical checkups. Papa Adebayo, in addition to the stroke he had suffered 2 years prior, suffered from severe arthritis in his knees and blood pressure problems that forced him to take 4 different pills each day. The last 5 years had been particularly difficult. The children visited less and less, always with excuses related to work, grandchildren, spouses, social commitments. When Papa Adebayo suffered the stroke, only Ada appeared at the hospital, and only for 2 hours. Kunle sent a bouquet of flowers with an unsigned card. Tunde called from Lagos to ask how everything was, but did not travel to see his father. Telephone conversations had become increasingly shorter and more spaced out. The grandchildren, who used to run excitedly to hug their grandparents, now barely greeted them with reluctance when they visited. The deterioration of the family relationship accelerated when the children began to suggest that the house was too big for 2 elderly people, that maintenance was expensive, that it would be better to sell it, and for their parents to move into a small apartment or an old people's home. At first, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi politely rejected these suggestions, but the children insisted with increasing pressure. Kunle argued that he needed money to expand his house because he was expecting another baby. Ada complained that her confectionery business needed capital and that her parents had an unused asset sitting there. Tunde, the most direct, said his parents were selfish for keeping such a large house when he needed money to establish his own law firm. The pressure became unbearable when the 3 siblings united to hire a family law specialist who began visiting them with legal documents. They argued that their parents no longer had the mental capacity to make decisions about their assets due to age and illness. The lawyer explained that they had initiated a judicial interdiction process that would grant the children total control over their parents' assets for their own well-being and protection. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi felt betrayed, humiliated, and utterly alone. During the night, they embraced in their 6-year-old matrimonial bed, crying silently and wondering where they had failed as parents. Mama Ngozi repeated through tears, "Papa Adebayo, we gave them everything, absolutely everything. Why are they doing this to us?" Papa Adebayo, his voice trembling with age and emotion, replied, "Mama Ngozi, my love, God knows what we are going through. He has a plan for us. Let us not lose faith." The court judgment arrived on a Friday afternoon. The judge had ruled in favor of the children, arguing that there were indeed signs of cognitive deterioration in the defendants and that the sale of the house was necessary to ensure adequate medical care for the elderly. The children had presented testimonies from neighbors who claimed to have seen Mama Ngozi talking to herself in the yard and Papa Adebayo lost in the street on 2 occasions. They also presented medical reports that exaggerated their parents' actual health conditions. On the day of the eviction, none of the 3 children appeared. They sent a lawyer with 2 employees of a moving company who carried all of Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi's belongings onto the street. The antique furniture, family photographs, clothes, kitchen utensils. Everything was piled on the sidewalk while a pickup truck waited to take only the valuable items: the television, the new refrigerator they had bought with Papa Adebayo's pension money, the gas stove, and Mama Ngozi's few pieces of jewelry. Neighbors watched from their windows, some with tears in their eyes, but no one dared to intervene for fear of legal problems. Mama Funke, the next-door neighbor, who had been Mama Ngozi's friend for 20 years, approached to hug her and whispered in her ear, "Mama Ngozi, this cannot stand. This is a great injustice." Mama Ngozi, her voice broken by crying, responded, "Mama Funke, we believed our children would care for us in our old age, but God knows why He allows this." By 6 p.m., Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi were standing in the street with 2 worn cardboard suitcases, not knowing where to go. Papa Adebayo carried a small suitcase with his clothes and medication. Mama Ngozi carried a larger suitcase with some clothes for both of them, the few photographs she had managed to save, and the black-bound Bible they had received as a wedding gift. She also carried in her purse the emergency savings they had hidden in a biscuit tin, 20,000, which represented all their wealth at that moment. The evening was darkening, and a cold drizzle, typical of the Nigerian uplands, began to fall. Papa Adebayo, leaning on his wooden walking stick that he had carved years ago, took Mama Ngozi's hand and said, "Mama Ngozi, let us walk. God will show us the way." They began to walk away from what had been their home for almost 3 decades, without looking back, because the pain of betrayal was too great. They walked slowly through the streets of Ibadan, stopping every few blocks for Papa Adebayo to rest due to the difficulties left by the stroke. Some people looked at them with curiosity or pity, but no one came closer to offer help. They arrived at Dugbe Market Square when it was completely dark and sat on a bench under the light of a street lamp to decide what to do. Mama Ngozi took the 20,000 from her purse and carefully counted it. "Papa Adebayo, this money might last us for a room in a guest house for a week, but after that, I don't know what we'll do." Papa Adebayo looked towards the cathedral and said, Mama Ngozi, let's go into the church to pray. Let's ask God to show us what to do. They entered the cathedral, which was almost empty because it was late, and knelt in the first pew. For an hour, they prayed in silence, each asking for strength to face the situation and wisdom to make the right decisions. When they left the church, a man about 60 years old, wearing a traditional Hausa cap and simple farmer's clothes, approached them. The man had been observing them since they entered the church and had realized they were people in difficulty. "Good evening, sir and madam," the man said with a rural accent. "Excuse me for approaching, but I saw you inside praying with great faith, and I have the impression that you are going through a difficult time." Papa Adebayo replied, "Good evening, sir. Yes, we are in a complicated situation, but God will provide." The man introduced himself. "My name is Baba Segun. I am from a small village about an hour's walk from here, towards the hills. I work guarding a farm and live alone in a small house." Baba Segun noticed their suitcases and their evident state of helplessness. "Do you have somewhere to spend the night?" he asked with genuine concern. Mama Ngozi, with tears in her eyes, replied, "No, sir. Today we were driven from our home, and we have no family to take us in." Baba Segun, without hesitation, said, "Come with me. In my little house there is space for you. It's not much I can offer, but I have a free room, and tomorrow we can see what solution we find." Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi looked at each other, and in that gaze, they communicated without words. Both felt that this encounter was not a coincidence, but a direct answer to their prayers. Baba Segun, Papa Adebayo said, "We don't want to be a burden to you, but if you can help us tonight, we will be grateful for life." Baba Segun replied, "Don't worry. Walking to my house will take about an hour, but I will help you with the suitcases. Can you walk that distance?" Mama Ngozi replied, "Yes, sir. With God's help we can." They left Dugbe Market Square towards the hills surrounding Ibadan. The path was unpaved dirt and became steeper as they moved away from the city. Baba Segun carried both suitcases and walked slowly so that Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi could keep pace. Along the way, they talked about their lives. Baba Segun told them that he had worked for 30 years as a farm caretaker in different hamlets of Oyo State, that he had never married, and that he lived a simple but peaceful life. When Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi told him what they had experienced with their children, Baba Segun shook his head sadly. "What a great sorrow, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi. That is not right. Children must care for and respect their parents, especially when they are old. But you will see that God will reward you for all you have suffered. God does not owe anyone." After walking for an hour and a half, they arrived at a small mud house with a zinc roof, located on a mountainside. The house had 2 small rooms, a tiny living room, a simple kitchen with a wood-burning stove, and a basic bathroom built in the back. Baba Segun lit a kerosene lamp because there was no electricity in that remote hamlet. "This room is for you," he said, showing them a small room with a simple double bed, a rough wooden bedside table, and a small wardrobe. "It's not much, but the sheets are clean, and the bed is comfortable." Mama Ngozi sat on the bed and began to cry with gratitude. "Baba Segun, God will repay you. We didn't know what we were going to do tonight." Baba Segun replied, "Mama Ngozi, don't cry anymore. Here you will be safe, and tomorrow we will think about what we will do." That night, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi slept embracing in the simple but clean bed, feeling for the first time in many months a tranquility they had not experienced in a long time. Before falling asleep, they prayed, thanking God for placing Baba Segun in their path and asking for wisdom to face the coming days. They did not know that the next day they would begin to discover clues about a buried house that would completely change their lives. The next day, Baba Segun woke Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi with the aroma of coffee from the farm, which he prepared every morning in a tin pot over the wood-burning stove. "Good morning, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi. How did you sleep?" Papa Adebayo replied, "Very well, Baba Segun. It had been a long time since we slept so peacefully." They had breakfast of corn akara with pap and eggs from the chickens Baba Segun raised in the backyard. During breakfast, Baba Segun made a proposal that surprised them. "Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, I have been thinking all night. You cannot return to Ibadan because you have nowhere to live. And I feel very lonely in this little house since my mother died 2 years ago. How about you stay and live here with me? I work guarding the landlord's farm, but you can help me with the housework and taking care of the chickens. I cannot pay you a salary, but I can give you food, shelter, and companionship." Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi looked at each other, emotional. This proposal was like a direct answer from heaven to their most urgent needs. Baba Segun, Mama Ngozi said, "We accept with great gratitude. We will take care of your house as if it were our own, and we will help you in every way we can." Papa Adebayo added, "Baba Segun, even though I have some limitations due to the stroke, I can still work within my strength." After breakfast, Baba Segun took them on a tour of the surroundings so they could get to know the area where they would live. The farm where he worked was about 20 minutes downhill and was a large property where they raised cattle and cultivated yams. The landlord was an elderly gentleman named Chief Oladele, who lived in Ibadan but came twice a week to supervise the work. During the tour, they passed a place that powerfully caught Papa Adebayo's attention. It was a small elevation, completely covered with bushes and native trees, forming an artificial mound. "What is in that place, Baba Segun?" Papa Adebayo asked curiously. Baba Segun stopped and observed the mound with a strange expression. "Ah, Papa Adebayo, that is a very strange story," Baba Segun replied, scratching his head under his cap. "My father, may he rest in peace, always told me that there was a buried house there, but I never paid much attention because I thought they were old people's tales. But several neighbors around here have also said the same thing for many years." Mama Ngozi approached the mound. "A buried house. How so, Baba Segun?" Baba Segun took off his cap and scratched his head thoughtfully. "Well, according to my father, about 80 years ago, a very wealthy family lived here. But they had to leave the region due to political problems during the period of unrest. They said that before leaving, they buried their entire house with everything they had inside and never returned." Papa Adebayo asked, "And has no one ever tried to find that house?" Baba Segun replied, "Well, the truth, Papa Adebayo, people are somewhat afraid of that place. They say it is haunted, and that a lady dressed in white comes out and guards the place." Mama Ngozi, who was very Catholic but also very curious, crossed herself and said, "And what do you think, Baba Segun? Do you believe that story about the buried house is true?" Baba Segun put his cap back on. "Well, Mama Ngozi, I don't know what to think. What is true is that mound does not look natural. It looks as if something was built underneath all that earth and vegetation." Papa Adebayo, who during his many years as a mechanic had developed a special instinct for detecting when something was not working normally, observed the mound carefully. "You know what, Baba Segun? That place does look strange. The shape is not like a natural hill. It looks too square, as if there are structures underneath." Mama Ngozi added, "And look, the vegetation growing on top looks different from the rest. It looks greener and thicker." Baba Segun nodded. "Yes, several neighbors have said the same thing, but they also say it's dangerous to go in there because the ground might be loose and one could sink." However, something inside Papa Adebayo told him that place was important, though he didn't know exactly why. It was as if an invisible force was drawing him towards that mysterious mound. Over the next few days, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi quickly adapted to their new life in Baba Segun's little house. Mama Ngozi took care of the cooking, washed clothes in the cement, washed basin in the yard, and looked after the chickens that laid fresh eggs every day. Papa Adebayo, despite his physical limitations, helped with lighter tasks, feeding the chickens, collecting dry firewood for the stove, and keeping the house yard clean. But every day, during their walks around the area for exercise, Papa Adebayo felt more drawn to the mysterious mound. Mama Ngozi noticed this attraction and one day asked him, "Papa Adebayo, why do you spend so much time looking at that place?" Papa Adebayo replied, "I don't know, Mama Ngozi. It's as if something is calling me from there. I feel a great curiosity to know what is underneath all that earth." One afternoon, while Baba Segun had gone down to the farm to work, Papa Adebayo proposed to Mama Ngozi, "How about we get closer to the mound to explore it better?" Mama Ngozi, although somewhat afraid, trusted her husband completely. "All right, Papa Adebayo, but let's be very careful." They headed towards the mound, carrying a cutlass that Baba Segun had lent them to clear brush around the house. When they reached the edge of the mound, Papa Adebayo began to cut some branches and bushes growing at the lowest part. After a few minutes of work, he shouted excitedly, "Mama Ngozi, come see this!" He had discovered what appeared to be the corner of a brick wall, completely covered in earth and moss. Mama Ngozi ran closer. "My God, Papa Adebayo, there is something built here." They worked for 2 hours cleaning that area and discovered that there was indeed a brick wall in excellent condition. The wall extended both to the left and to the right, disappearing under layers of earth accumulated over decades. Papa Adebayo was thrilled. "Mama Ngozi, this confirms that there is a buried house here. The stories people told were true. When Baba Segun returned from the farm that afternoon, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi were waiting for him with an emotion they could not hide. "Baba Segun," Papa Adebayo told him, "we have something very important to show you." They led him to the mound and showed him the brick wall they had discovered. Baba Segun was speechless for a few minutes, observing with astonishment the physical evidence of the stories he had heard all his life. "God preserve us," exclaimed Baba Segun, taking off his cap. "My father's stories were true." "Yes, there is a buried house here," Mama Ngozi asked. "And what do we do now, Baba Segun?" Baba Segun shook his head thoughtfully. "Well, I think we need to talk to Chief Oladele, the farm owner. He knows the history of all these lands very well, because his family has lived around here for more than 50 years. The next day, when Chief Oladele arrived at the farm for his weekly visit, Baba Segun sought him out to tell him about the discovery. Chief Oladele was a 5-year-old man, highly respected in the region, with an extraordinary memory for past events. When Baba Segun told him what they had found, Chief Oladele became very emotional. "Baba Segun, finally someone found evidence of the Adebayos' house." "The Adebayos?" Baba Segun asked, surprised. Chief Oladele nodded. "Yes, the family that lived in that house was called Adebayo. They were very rich and very good people. They had a lot of cattle and cultivated the best lands in this entire region." When Baba Segun mentioned that the elderly couple who had found the wall were also named Adebayo, Chief Oladele was completely surprised. "What are their names?" Chief Oladele asked with wide eyes. "Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, his wife," Baba Segun replied. Chief Oladele sat on a stone because his legs trembled with shock. "Baba Segun, this cannot be a coincidence. The Adebayos, who lived in that house, had a son named Adebayo, and that Adebayo had a son who was also named Adebayo. This man could be a direct descendant of that family." That afternoon, Chief Oladele went up to Baba Segun's little house to personally meet Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi. When he saw Papa Adebayo, he stared at him for several minutes. "Papa Adebayo, you look so much like the Papa Adebayo who lived in that buried house. What do you know about your family?" Papa Adebayo replied, "Well, sir, I know very little. My father was named Baba Femi, and he told me that his grandfather had been very rich, but had lost everything during the unrest. But he never gave me many details." Chief Oladele became so emotional that he began to cry. "Papa Adebayo, you are the great-grandson of the Papa Adebayo who lived in that house. Your great-great-grandfather was the richest and most respected man in this entire region." Mama Ngozi crossed herself. "My God, what does that mean, Chief Oladele?" Chief Oladele replied, "Mama Ngozi, that means you have a legal right to everything buried in that house because you are the direct heirs of that family." Chief Oladele told them the complete story he had heard from his own father. "Papa Adebayo, your great-great-grandfather, owned more than 500 hectares of the best lands in Oyo State. He had thousands of heads of cattle and had accumulated an immense fortune over 30 years of work. But when the unrest began in the 1940s, he was threatened by opposition factions because he was a prominent community leader. He was given a week to leave the region or they would kill him and his entire family." Chief Oladele continued. "So he made a very intelligent decision. He hired 20 trusted laborers, and for a full week, they buried his house with everything inside. They put in all the furniture, all the money, all the jewelry of Iya Modupe, his wife, the property documents, absolutely everything. Then, they planted grass and trees on top to make it look like a natural hill." "And what happened to Papa Adebayo and his family?" Mama Ngozi asked with tear-filled eyes. Chief Oladele sighed. "They left for Ibadan with the only things they could carry, some clothes and a few emergency naira. Papa Adebayo died about 5 years later of sadness from having lost everything. His son, Baba Femi, who was your grandfather, Papa Adebayo, grew up in poverty and never knew exactly where the family house was buried. That is why your family remained poor for all these generations." Papa Adebayo was trembling with emotion. "Chief Oladele, are you sure I am a descendant of that family?" Chief Oladele nodded. "Completely sure, Papa Adebayo. Your surname, your grandfather's name, your physical resemblance to the original Papa Adebayo, and especially that you were drawn to this buried house. All of this confirms that you are the legitimate heir to that fortune." Mama Ngozi asked the question everyone was thinking. "And what do we have to do to recover what is buried?" Chief Oladele replied, "First, we have to unearth the house carefully, so as not to damage what is inside. Second, we have to find the legal documents that prove the ownership of the original Papa Adebayo. And third, We have to complete the legal procedures for you to officially recover the entire family inheritance. That night, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi could not sleep from excitement. They lay embracing in bed, whispering about everything they had discovered. Mama Ngozi, do you think this is true? Could it be that we are really heirs to a fortune? Mama Ngozi replied, Papa Adebayo, I feel in my heart that it is true. God removed us from our house, brought us here, placed Baba Segun and Chief Oladele in our path, and led us exactly to our ancestors' house. This cannot be a coincidence. This is God's work. The next day, the most exciting excavation of their lives began. Chief Oladele brought 4 trusted laborers from his farm, and together, they began to carefully remove the earth from the mound. Baba Segun had borrowed some shovels and picks, and Mama Ngozi prepared refreshing drinks and lunch for everyone who was working. After 3 days of careful excavation, the house's roof appeared. It was a perfectly preserved clay tile roof, protected by a thick plastic layer that had prevented water seepage for all those decades. Chief Oladele explained, the original Papa Adebayo was very intelligent. He knew that if he protected the house well, everything would be preserved in perfect condition until his descendants found it. On the 4th day, they found the main door of the house. It was a solid wooden door with wrought iron fittings, secured with a huge padlock that time had completely rusted. Papa Adebayo, with the emotion of being about to enter his ancestor's house, took a pickaxe and broke the rusted padlock. When the door opened, an air smelling of old wood and stopped time emanated. Chief Oladele lit a powerful flashlight and illuminated the interior of the house. What they saw left them speechless. The main living room was completely intact, as if the family had left yesterday. The fine wooden furniture was covered with white sheets to protect it from dust. The walls still held religious paintings and family portraits. In one corner, there was a dark wooden upright piano. Everything was exactly as the family had left it 80 years ago. Mama Ngozi crossed herself and slowly entered the house, followed by Papa Adebayo, who leaned on his walking stick. My God, Papa Adebayo, Mama Ngozi exclaimed. This is like a museum of our own family. Baba Segun and Chief Oladele followed, illuminating every corner with flashlights to appreciate all the details. In the main living room, they found antique furniture of excellent quality, a genuine leather sofa set, a 1-2-seater dining table carved from solid wood, a display cabinet with fine porcelain tableware, and shelves filled with old books. The walls were decorated with family photographs from the early 20th century, showing elegantly dressed ladies and gentlemen. Papa Adebayo stopped in front of a large portrait hanging above the fireplace. It was a photograph of a man about 50 years old with a mustache, dressed in a formal suit and cap, accompanied by an elegant lady in a long dress with an updo. Below the portrait, there was a bronze plaque that read, Papa Adebayo and Iya Modupe, 1940. Mama Ngozi, Papa Adebayo cried with tears in his eyes. These are our great-great-grandparents. Look how much I resemble him. Indeed, the physical resemblance between Papa Adebayo and his great-great-grandfather was striking. The same eye shape, the same facial structure, the same smile. Mama Ngozi also began to cry. Papa Adebayo, now I understand why you were drawn to this place. Your blood was calling you to your family's home. Chief Oladele guided them to other rooms in the house. There were 3 main bedrooms, each with carved wooden beds, antique wardrobes filled with perfectly preserved period clothing, and bedside tables with personal items, pocket watches, jewelry, prayer books, family photographs. In the main bedroom, they found something that deeply moved them. On the bedside table, there was a letter sealed with red wax, addressed, To my descendants, who will one day find this house. Papa Adebayo, with hands trembling from emotion and age, broke the wax seal and began to read the letter aloud. If someone of my blood is reading this letter, it means that God allowed you to find the house I had to bury to protect the family heritage. My name is Papa Adebayo, and along with my wife Iya Modupe, we had to flee these lands in 1943 due to threats of death during the unrest. In this house, we have stored all the assets we accumulated over 30 years of honest work. Cash, family jewels, deeds to 500 hectares of land, certificates of shares in companies, and loan contracts owed to us by several wealthy families in the region. Papa Adebayo had to stop reading because he was trembling so much with emotion that he could not continue. Mama Ngozi took the letter and continued reading. Everything in this house legally belongs to you as my direct descendants. In the main bedroom wardrobe, there is a safe behind the hung clothes. The combination is 1895, the year I married Iya Modupe. Inside that safe are all the legal documents that prove you are the legitimate owners of all this heritage. There is also cash hidden in various places in the house, under the loose floorboards in the kitchen, inside thick books in the library, and in a leather bag buried under the stove. All that money is kept in gold coins and old banknotes that have acquired a much greater value over time. But more important than material wealth, I want you to know that you are descendants of a hardworking, honest, and God-fearing family. Use this blessing to do good and help people in need. The letter concluded, with all my love, for my unknown, but always awaited, descendants, Papa Adebayo and Iya Modupe. March 1943. Chief Oladele wiped his tears with his handkerchief. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, you have just found not only a material fortune, but the complete history of your family. This is a miracle from God. Mama Ngozi embraced Papa Adebayo. My love, God took everything from us to give us so much more. Our children abandoned us, but our great-great-grandparents were waiting for us. If you are enjoying this incredible story, and you have liked it, click now and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the exciting ending that is coming. Following the instructions in the letter, they headed towards the wardrobe in the main bedroom. They moved the hung clothes and indeed found a safe embedded in the back wall of the wardrobe. Papa Adebayo dialed the combination 1895, and the safe opened with a metallic click that echoed throughout the room like a bell of hope. Inside the safe were several meticulously organized compartments. In the first compartment, they found a leather folder with all the legal documents. Original deeds to 500 hectares of the best lands in Oyo State, certificates of shares in 3 still existing cattle ranching companies, loan contracts for enormous amounts of money that several wealthy families in the region owed to the original Papa Adebayo, and most importantly, the complete legal will, where Papa Adebayo declared that all his assets would be inherited by his direct descendants. In the second compartment, there were family jewels, gold necklaces with emeralds, antique diamond earrings, rings with precious stones, gold pocket watches, and a silver tiara that had belonged to Iya Modupe's grandmother. Mama Ngozi picked up one of the jewels and observed it with astonishment. Papa Adebayo, these jewels are finer than anything we have ever seen in our lives. In the third compartment, they found something that moved them even more than the jewels. Complete family photographs, showing the Adebayo genealogy for 4 generations. There was a photograph of the original Papa Adebayo's son, who was identical to Baba Femi, Papa Adebayo's grandfather. There was also a photograph of Baba Femi as a child with his parents, and several family letters confirming all the names and birth dates. But the most impressive thing was in the fourth compartment. Bundles of perfectly preserved old banknotes and velvet bags full of pure gold coins. Chief Oladele, who knew about antiques and historical values, quickly made a calculation. Papa Adebayo, these gold coins alone are worth more than 500 million today, and these old banknotes, being collector's items, are worth much more than their original value. Over the next few days, they completely explored the buried house and found treasures in every corner. Under the kitchen floorboards, there were 12 more bags of gold coins. Inside the library books, there were old banknotes used as bookmarks. In the house's backyard, following a map they found among the documents, they discovered 3 buried chests filled with more jewels, coins, and valuable objects. But the most exciting discovery was in the last room they explored, the original Papa Adebayo's study. There they found the complete accounting books for all his properties and businesses. The accounts showed that Papa Adebayo had outstanding loans worth over 2 billion today, considering the accumulated interest over 80 years. Mama Ngozi read the accounting books with astonishment. Papa Adebayo, your great-great-grandfather lent money to families who are now the wealthiest in Oyo State. All those loans, with their interest, legally belong to us, Chief Oladele confirmed. Mama Ngozi, several of those families still exist and are millionaires. With these documents, you can claim everything they owe you. They also found something that completely reassured them. All the documents were backed by notarized copies that Papa Adebayo had deposited in banks in Lagos before fleeing. The banks had preserved these documents for decades, waiting for the legitimate heirs to appear. This meant that the entire inheritance was completely legal, and there would be no problems in officially claiming it. Baba Segun, who had witnessed the entire discovery process, was thrilled. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, you deserve this blessing after all you suffered with your children. God knew what he was doing when he allowed your children to throw you out of your house. Papa Adebayo replied, Baba Segun, you will also share in this blessing because without your help, we would never have found any of this. But precisely when Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi were experiencing the greatest happiness of their lives, the first threats began to appear. News of the treasure's discovery had reached the ears of unscrupulous people who wanted to appropriate wealth that did not belong to them. The first hint of danger appeared when Chief Oladile arrived one morning at Baba Segun's little house, very worried. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, Chief Oladile told them seriously. "Yesterday in the village, word spread about the treasure you found, and some people are asking suspicious questions." Mama Ngozi asked, "What kind of questions, Chief Oladile?" Chief Oladile replied, "They are asking exactly where the house is, how much money you found, and if you have family who can protect you." Papa Adebayo became concerned. "And who are these people?" Chief Oladile became serious. "There is a group of men who came from Ibadan asking for you. They say they are your children and that they have come to take you back. But I suspect they heard about the treasure and now want to claim a part." Mama Ngozi turned pale. "My God, now they come looking for us when they know we have money." The situation became complicated when the next day 3 young men arrived in the village in a new car, asking for Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi. Baba Segun saw them arrive and immediately ran to warn them. "Papa Adebayo, some men have arrived asking for you, and they don't look like people with good intentions." Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi cautiously peeked out the window and indeed recognized 2 of the men. They were Kunle and Tunde, their sons, accompanied by an unknown man wearing a suit and carrying a lawyer's brief. Mama Ngozi sighed. "Papa Adebayo, our children are coming for us now that they know we have money. But when they threw us out of the house, they didn't care about us at all." The 3 men reached Baba Segun's little house and knocked insistently on the door. Kunle shouted, "Papa, Mama, we know you're in there. We've come for you." Tunde added, "Open the door. We need to talk urgently." The third man, who was a lawyer, shouted, "Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo, I am Barrister Namdi, a lawyer specializing in inheritances. I have come to help you with the legal procedures." Papa Adebayo, leaning on his walking stick, opened the door, but without stepping out completely. "Kunle, Tunde, what are you doing here? When you threw us out of our house, you said you never wanted to hear from us again." Kunle, feigning concern, replied, "Papa, we are very sorry for what happened. We have come to ask for your forgiveness and to take you back to Ibadan to care for you as you deserve." Mama Ngozi came out of the house and confronted her children with a dignity they had never seen in her. "Kunle, Tunde, you threw us onto the street without caring if we died of hunger or cold. Now you appear here with pretty words, but we know you heard about the treasure, and that's why you came." Tunde tried to deny it. "Mama, what treasure are you talking about? We came because we missed you and want you to come back with us." The lawyer, Barrister Namdi, interrupted. "Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo, I represent the interests of your children, who are very concerned for your well-being. We have learned that you found some valuable antique objects, and we want to help you complete the correct legal procedures so that you do not have problems with the authorities." Papa Adebayo replied firmly, "Barrister, we do not need your help. Everything we found belongs to us legally, and we have all the documents to prove it." Kunle changed his feigned affectionate tone to a more aggressive one. "Papa, you are too old to handle so much money. You could be victims of scammers or make wrong decisions. It is better that we help you manage this inheritance." Mama Ngozi replied with a firm voice. "Kunle, when we needed help, you abandoned us. Now that God has blessed us, we do not need you to manage anything for us." Tunde tried to use legal arguments. "Papa, Mama, we are your direct heirs. Everything you find automatically belongs to us too. It is better that we reach an agreement before this becomes a legal problem." Papa Adebayo straightened up despite his physical limitations. "Tunde, you are a lawyer, and you know that is not true. We are alive and have full mental capacity to decide on our assets." Barrister Namdi took some documents from his brief. "Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo, here I have a very convenient proposal for everyone. You concede 50% of the inheritance, and we will take care of all the legal procedures and guarantee you a comfortable life in a first-class geriatric home in Ibadan." Mama Ngozi was indignant. "We are not going to any geriatric home, and much less will we give you a single kobo of what our ancestors left us." Chief Oladele and Baba Segun had been listening to the entire conversation from a safe distance and decided to intervene to support Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi. Chief Oladele approached the group. "Barrister Namdi, I have known these elders for more than a week, and I also know the entire legal history of the inheritance they found. Everything is completely in order, and they do not need any kind of intermediary." Baba Segun added, "And you? who claim to be Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngosi's children, should be ashamed to appear here only when you learned that your parents have money. When they needed help, you abandoned them like dogs. Kunle was annoyed by the intervention. And who are you to interfere in family matters? Chief Oladele replied, "We are your parents' true friends, the ones who helped them when you threw them onto the street." The situation became more tense when Barrister Namdi changed his strategy. "Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo, if you do not cooperate voluntarily, we will be forced to initiate a legal process of interdiction due to mental incapacity because of advanced age. We can argue that finding a buried treasure and believing it belongs to you is evidence of cognitive deterioration." Papa Adebayo was enraged. "Barrister, we have all the documents that prove that this inheritance is ours, and we have full mental capacity," Mama Ngozi added. "Furthermore, we have already started the corresponding legal procedures with an honest lawyer from Ibadan, who is helping us without wanting to steal anything." This was true. Chief Oladele had put them in contact with Barrister Olumide, a lawyer of excellent reputation who specialized in family inheritance cases and had been fascinated by the complete story of the Adebayos. Tunde tried to intimidate them. "Papa, Mama, you don't understand how dangerous it can be to have so much cash in such a remote place. Thieves could come to rob you or even harm you physically. It is much safer for us to take the money to Ibadan and deposit it in a bank." Papa Adebayo replied, "Tunde, the money is already in a safe place, and we are very well protected here." Kunle made one last threat before leaving. "All right, Papa and Mama, you will see what we are capable of. If you do not accept our help voluntarily, we will use all necessary legal resources to protect the family's interests." Barrister Namdi added, "Mr. and Mrs. Adebayo, I give you 3 days to reconsider our proposal. After that, we will initiate the corresponding legal actions." The 3 men left in their new car, but not before driving around to pinpoint exactly where the buried house was. Baba Segun saw them observing the location with binoculars from a nearby hill. "Papa Adebayo, those men are scouting the area. I don't like what they are planning at all." That night, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi could not sleep due to worry. Papa Adebayo told her, "Mama Ngozi, I am very afraid that our children might be capable of harming us to get the money." Mama Ngozi reassured him, "Papa Adebayo, we have God on our side. We have the legal documents. We have the support of Chief Oladele and Baba Segun, and we have an honest lawyer who is helping us. We will not let them steal what belongs to us." The next day, Chief Oladele brought worrying news. "Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, people in the village are saying that your children are hiring more lawyers and offering money to some local authorities to support them in the legal process." Mama Ngozi was alarmed. "And what can we do, Chief Oladele?" Chief Oladele replied, "I have already spoken with Barrister Olumide, and he says we need to accelerate all legal procedures to officially register the inheritance before your children can do anything." Barrister Olumide arrived that afternoon in the village, accompanied by a public notary and an official from the Office of the Surveyor General of the state to conduct the official measurement of the inherited lands. He also brought professional cameras to thoroughly document the buried house and all its contents. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, Barrister Olumide told them, "We are going to make a complete and legal inventory of the entire inheritance so that it is officially registered that you are the sole owners." The official documentation process lasted 2 full days. The notary certified every document found in the house, took photographs of every valuable object, and prepared a complete legal inventory that included the deeds to 500 hectares of land, the certificates of shares in 3 prosperous cattle ranching companies, loan contracts worth over 2 billion, family jewels valued at over 300 million, gold coins valued at over 500 million, and antique collectors' banknotes valued at over 200 million. When they finished the official inventory, Barrister Olumide gave them the most reassuring news. "Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, the total value of your inheritance exceeds 5 billion. You are officially one of the wealthiest families in Oyo State, and everything is completely legal and documented. Your children cannot do absolutely anything to take a single naira from you." But precisely when Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi felt most secure, the most dangerous attack occurred. It was a dark, moonless night when Baba Segun heard strange noises around the buried house. He rose silently and peered out the window. There were 5 men with flashlights digging in the place where the treasure was. Baba Segun immediately woke Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi. "Papa Adebayo, there are thieves trying to steal the treasure!" Papa Adebayo got up as best he could and took his walking stick. "Who are they, Baba Segun?" Baba Segun replied, I don't recognize them, but one of them looks a lot like Kunle, your son. Mama Ngozi put on a coat. Papa Adebayo, let's defend what is ours. The three left the house and headed towards where the thieves were. When they got closer, they indeed confirmed that Kunle and Tunde were directing the robbery operation. Accompanied by 3 burly men they had hired to dig and carry the treasure. They had 2 pickup trucks ready to take everything away. Papa Adebayo leaned on his walking stick and shouted with all the strength his lungs allowed, "Kunle, Tunde, what are you doing?" Kunle, surprised by his parents' appearance, responded aggressively, "Papa, we are your children, and we have a right to this inheritance. If you don't want to give it to us willingly, we will take it by force." Mama Ngozi was indignant. "Kunle, this is robbery. You are thieves." Tunde tried to justify the theft. "Mama, you are too old to enjoy so much money. We are young and can use it to grow the family fortune." Papa Adebayo replied, his voice trembling with anger. "Tunde, you threw us out of our house when we needed you most. Now you have no right to anything that is ours." One of the hired men, who was armed, approached Papa Adebayo menacingly. "Old man, don't get involved where you're not wanted. We are in charge here." But at that moment, the police siren was heard approaching along the village road. Chief Oladele had been watching from his house because he suspected something like this might happen. And when he saw the suspicious pickup trucks, he immediately called the Ibadan police. 2 patrol cars arrived with 6 armed police officers who completely surrounded the scene of the robbery. The police sergeant shouted, "Halt! Everyone to the ground with your hands on your heads." The 3 hired men tried to flee but were immediately captured. Kunle and Tunde tried to explain the situation. "Sergeant, we are the children of these elders, and we have the right to claim the family inheritance." The sergeant replied, "You are caught in the act of robbery. You will have to explain that at the station." Barrister Olumide arrived a few minutes later because Chief Oladele had also called him. He carried all the copies of the legal documents that proved Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi were the sole legitimate owners of the entire inheritance. "Sergeant," he told the police officer, "these elders have all the legal documents certifying their ownership. What these people were doing is aggravated robbery and attempted fraud." Kunle and Tunde were arrested, along with the 3 men they had hired. As they were being put into the patrol cars, Kunle shouted to his parents, "Papa, Mama, you will regret this. We are your children, and someday you will need us." Mama Ngozi replied with a serenity she had never possessed. "Kunle, you stopped being our children the day you threw us out of our house. Now we know who you really are," Papa Adebayo added. "Kunle, Tunde, you had the opportunity to be good children when we needed you. Now it's too late." The patrol cars took the 5 detainees to the Ibadan police station, where they would be prosecuted for aggravated robbery, attempted fraud, and trespass. The next day, Barrister Olumide brought them news about the legal process. "Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, your children and their accomplices have been sent to jail while the investigation proceeds. Furthermore, as you are the victims, you have the right to claim compensation for the moral and psychological damages they caused you." Mama Ngozi asked, "Barrister Olumide, can we guarantee that this will not happen again?" The lawyer replied, "Mama Ngozi, now that everything is legally documented and your children have criminal records for attempting to rob you, you are completely protected by law." Chief Oladele had hired a private security company to protect the buried house 24 hours a day while all legal procedures were finalized. He had also installed security cameras and alarm systems to prevent future robbery attempts. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, Chief Oladele told them, "Now you can rest easy. Your treasure is completely protected." But most importantly, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi had discovered something more valuable than money. They had found their own dignity, their own strength, and the absolute certainty that God had guided them throughout this process to give them justice after so many years of suffering. A week after the incident with their children, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi made the most important decision of their new lives. They were sitting in the living room of the buried house, which had already been completely cleaned and restored, surrounded by all the wealth they had inherited from their ancestors. Mama Ngozi took Papa Adebayo's hand and said, "Papa Adebayo, do you think our great-great-grandparents wanted us to just keep this money to live well?" Papa Adebayo reflected for a few minutes and replied, "Mama Ngozi, I believe God allowed us to find this inheritance so that we could help other people who are suffering as we suffered." Mama Ngozi nodded. "That's what I was thinking too, Papa Adebayo. We know what it feels like to be abandoned by family, to have nowhere to live, to have no money for medication. There are many elderly people going through the same thing we went through. Barrister Olumide visited them that afternoon to hand over all the final documents that legally certified their ownership of the entire inheritance. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, he told them, you are now officially the registered owners of 500 hectares of land, shares in 3 prosperous cattle ranching companies, a cash fortune of over 5 billion, and all the historical assets found in the house. What plans do you have for managing all this wealth? Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi looked at each other and smiled with the complicity of 46 years of marriage. Barrister Olumide, Papa Adebayo said, we want to create a foundation to help elderly people who have been abandoned by their families. Mama Ngozi added, we want to buy houses where elders can live with dignity, with medical care, with nutritious food, and especially with love and companionship. Barrister Olumide was moved by the idea. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, that is a beautiful initiative. With the fortune you have, you can help hundreds of elderly people for many years. Mama Ngozi explained more details. Barrister, we want the foundation to be called the Papa Adebayo Foundation in honor of our great-great-grandfather who preserved this inheritance for us, and we want it to have several homes in different local government areas of Oyo State. Papa Adebayo added, we also want to help elders find their families when possible and make children understand that they have a moral and legal obligation to care for their parents. Barrister Olumide took notes of all the details. Perfect. I will take care of all the legal procedures to create the foundation. In a month, it can be officially operational. Chief Oladele and Baba Segun were present during this conversation and were deeply moved by Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi's generosity. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi, Chief Oladele, said with tears in his eyes, you are the noblest people I have met in my entire life. No wonder God blessed you with such a great inheritance. Baba Segun added, you deserve this fortune, not by chance, but because you have a good heart that will use wealth to do good. Over the following weeks, preparations began to establish the foundation. With a portion of the inherited money, they bought an old mansion in the center of Ibadan, which they would convert into the foundation's first home. It was a 2-story colonial house with 20 spacious rooms, internal gardens, and all the necessary spaces for 30 elderly people to live comfortably. They also bought modern medical equipment, hired nurses specialized in elder care, a geriatric doctor who would visit the house 3 times a week, and cooks specialized in elderly nutrition. Mama Ngozi insisted that each room have a private bathroom, a television, and warm decor so that the elders would feel at home. The foundation's second home was established in Osogbo, a nearby city where there were also many abandoned elderly people. This house was smaller, for 15 people, but had the same amenities as the one in Ibadan. Papa Adebayo personally supervised the installation of ramps for wheelchairs, safety bars in bathrooms, and non-slip floors to prevent accidents. For the third home, they chose Badagry, a historic town where the climate would be beneficial for the elders' health. This house had a large garden where the elders could walk, do gentle exercise, and cultivate their own plants. Mama Ngozi designed a schedule of recreational activities, painting classes, memory workshops, traditional music evenings, and celebrations for all birthdays and special dates. But the most important aspect of the foundation was not the physical facilities, but the philosophy of love and respect that Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi established from the beginning. In our homes, Mama Ngozi explained to the nurses and caregivers, every elder will be treated as if they were our own father or mother. Here, no one is a burden. Here, everyone is a blessing. Papa Adebayo insisted that the homes maintain a family atmosphere. We don't want this to resemble a hospital or an asylum. We want it to resemble Grandma's house, where there is love, where there is conversation, where there is laughter, where every person feels important and respected. That is why they established that elders could bring their favorite furniture, their family photographs, their small pets, and any object that made them feel at home. News of the foundation spread rapidly throughout the region, and requests for help began to arrive from many families. The first elder they received at the Ibadan home was Baba Ola, a 7-8-year-old man who had been driven from his home by his children after selling a farm to pay off their debts. When Baba Ola arrived at the foundation, he only had the clothes he was wearing and a cardboard suitcase with some personal documents. Mama Ngozi personally welcomed Baba Ola. Baba Ola, welcome to your new home. Here you will have everything you need. A comfortable room, nutritious food, medical attention, and especially a family that will love and respect you. Baba Ola began to cry. Mama Ngozi, I thought I was going to die alone on the street. My children told me I was already a bother to them. Papa Adebayo approached Baba Ola. Baba Ola, You will never be alone again. Here, we are all a big family, and you are the first elder of this family." They showed him his room, which had a comfortable bed, a television, a private bathroom, and a window with a view of the garden. Baba Ola sat on the bed and said, "This room is more beautiful than any place I have lived in the last 10 years. The second resident was Mama Bola, a 72-year-old woman who had been abandoned by her 5 children after she fell ill with diabetes and could no longer work washing clothes. Mama Bola arrived in a wheelchair because she had leg problems, but her mind was completely clear, and she had a very cheerful personality. Mama Ngozi and Mama Bola became immediate friends. "Mama Bola, you and I will be like sisters. We will take care of each other and share all our stories," Mama Bola replied. "Oh, Mama Ngozi, what a great blessing to have arrived here. I thought I was going to die alone and sad, but you have given me back the desire to live." In a few weeks, the foundation's 3 homes were completely full, with 60 elders in total, who had found a permanent home where they could age with dignity. Each house had its own personality. The Ibadan one was the largest and most formal. The Osogbo one was more familiar and homely, and the Badagry one was the most relaxed and recreational. But Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi were not content with just providing accommodation and food. They also created a legal program to help elders recover properties or inheritances that had been stolen from them by unscrupulous relatives. Barrister Olumide agreed to handle all these legal cases free of charge, using foundation money to cover the costs of legal procedures. In the first year of the foundation's operation, they managed to recover 15 properties that had been illegally appropriated by children or relatives who had taken advantage of the elders' vulnerability. They also recovered several bank accounts, insurance policies, and pensions that were being fraudulently collected by people who were not the legitimate beneficiaries. Mama Ngozi also established a family reconciliation program for cases where it was possible to repair relationships between the elders and their families. Sometimes, Mama Ngozi explained, children are not bad people, but they are going through economic or family problems that make them make wrong decisions. If we can help resolve those problems, sometimes it is possible for families to reunite. This program was successful in several cases. Baba Dele, an 80-year-old elder who had come to the foundation after being driven from his home by his unemployed son, reconciled with his family when the foundation helped the son get a job in a cattle ranching company in the region. The son realized that he had treated his father unjustly out of desperation for not having an income and sincerely apologized. Mama Sad, a 75-year-old elder who had been involuntarily admitted to a poor-quality asylum by her daughter, returned to live with her family when the foundation helped the daughter understand that with adequate support, it was possible to care for her mother at home. The foundation provided a nurse who visited the house 3 times a week and covered the costs of medication. However, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi's most important work was to demonstrate that it is possible to age with joy, dignity, and purpose. The elders of the foundation did not feel like useless or disposable people, but as valuable members of a community that respected and needed them. Each one had responsibilities according to their abilities. Some helped in the kitchen, others tended the garden, some taught traditional crafts to the younger ones, and all participated in important community life decisions. Baba Ola, who had arrived depressed and without the will to live, became the official gardener of the Ibadan house. He had a special talent for growing roses and vegetables, and his garden became famous throughout the neighborhood. Baba Ola, Mama Ngozi would say, "You have given life and color to our house with your beautiful garden." Baba Ola would reply, "Mama Ngozi, these plants are beautiful because they are cared for with love, just as we are here." Mama Bola, despite her physical problems, had become the official entertainer for all 3 houses. She organized birthday parties, directed the traditional music choir, and had a special gift for cheering up any elder who was sad. Mama Bola, Papa Adebayo would say, "You have the most joyful heart I have ever known." Mama Bola would reply, "Papa Adebayo, when one feels loved, the heart cannot do anything but sing with happiness." By the 2nd year of the foundation's operation, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi had directly helped more than 200 elders, counting those who had passed through the homes and those who had been helped with family reconciliations or recovery of assets, but their influence had spread far beyond Oyo State. National newspapers had published reports about the Papa Adebayo Foundation, presenting it as a model for how society should care for its elderly. Television programs had visited the 3 homes to show how the elders lived, and many other regions of Nigeria had requested advice to create similar foundations. The Oyo state government granted them special recognition for their contribution to the social welfare of the region, and the Redeemed Christian Church of God invited them to share their testimony in several parishes to inspire other families to better care for their older adults. Mama Ngozi always ended these talks with the same reflection. We learned that God never abandons those who trust in Him, and that when one door closes, He always opens a bigger window. 5 years after the day they were driven from their home by their own children, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi were sitting on the terrace of the Ibadan mansion, watching the 60 elders from their 3 homes enjoy an afternoon of games and music in the garden. Papa Adebayo was 77, and Mama Ngozi was 73. But both looked younger and more vital than when they lived in poverty and sadness. Mama Ngozi told Papa Adebayo, taking his hand, "Do you regret anything from all that we have lived?" Papa Adebayo replied without hesitation, "Mama Ngozi, I thank God for everything we went through, even for our children's betrayal, because all of that brought us here. If we hadn't been driven from our home, we would never have found our great-great-grandparents' inheritance, and we would never have been able to help so many people." Papa Adebayo nodded. "Mama Ngozi, now I understand that God had a much bigger plan for us. He allowed us to suffer so that afterwards we could understand the suffering of others and help them with true love." Mama Ngozi added, "And the most beautiful thing of all is that we found a family much larger and more loving than the one we had before." It was true. The 60 elders of the foundation had become their true children. They treated them with respect, affection, and gratitude. They celebrated their birthdays, cared for them when they fell ill, asked for advice to solve their problems, and included them in all their important decisions. Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi had gained 60 children who loved them genuinely, instead of 3 who had betrayed them for money. Baba Ola, who was now 83 but still passionately tended his garden, approached them. "Papa Adebayo, Mama Ngozi, you know that all of us consider you our parents by heart." Mama Bola, who was now 77 and walked with a walker but maintained her contagious joy, added, "You gave us the family we never had, and we will give you the love your biological children failed to give you." Mama Ngozi was moved to tears. "Baba Ola, Mama Bola, you don't know the great happiness you give us with those words. We also consider you our children by heart," Papa Adebayo added. "And the most beautiful thing is that this family will last forever, because true love never ends." That night, Papa Adebayo and Mama Ngozi returned to Baba Segun's little house, which they had kept as their personal refuge for times when they wanted to be alone and remember how everything had begun. Baba Segun, who was now 65, continued to accompany them and had been appointed general coordinator of the foundation's 3 homes. Baba Segun, Papa Adebayo told him, "You were the angel God placed in our path that night in Dugbe Market Square. Without your help, we would never have gotten here." Baba Segun replied, "Papa Adebayo, I believe we met because God had a plan for the 3 of us. You and Mama Ngozi gave me a family, and I helped you find your destiny." Mama Ngozi added, "Baba Segun, you are also our child by heart. The 3 of us form a family that will never separate." Baba Segun was emotional. "Mama Ngozi, Papa Adebayo, living with you and seeing all you have achieved has been the greatest blessing of my life. You taught me that it is never too late to start a new life." As they talked in the simple house where their new life had begun, Papa Adebayo remembered the promise he had made to Mama Ngozi that first terrible night when they were driven from their home. "Mama Ngozi, do you remember that night I told you God would show us the way?" Mama Ngozi smiled. "Of course, I remember, Papa Adebayo. And look at all that God has given us. A huge family that loves us, a fortune that we can use to do good, and the satisfaction of knowing that our lives have a very important purpose." Papa Adebayo stood up with the help of his walking stick, which was no longer a symbol of weakness, but of wisdom and experience. He walked to the window, from where he could see the place where his great-great-grandparents' house was buried, now converted into a small museum, visited by students and tourists interested in learning about the Adebayo family's history. Mama Ngozi told Papa Adebayo, "Our great-great-grandparents would be very proud to know that their inheritance is being used to help so many people in need." Mama Ngozi approached him and hugged him. "Papa Adebayo, I believe they are in heaven watching us and blessing everything we do." Papa Adebayo replied, "I believe our 60 children by heart will continue this work when we are no longer here, so that the Papa Adebayo Foundation will continue to help abandoned elders for many more generations." That night they slept embracing as they had done for 46 years of marriage, but now with the peace of mind that their lives had had a transcendent purpose. They had converted their own suffering into a source of healing for others. transformed the betrayal of their biological children into love multiplied for 60 children by heart, and used the inheritance of their ancestors to create a legacy of love that would endure forever. The next day they woke up to the birds singing and the aroma of coffee that Baba Segun prepared on the wood-burning stove, just like that first morning when their new life began. But now that aroma did not represent uncertainty and fear, but hope and purpose. Mama Ngozi got up and looked out the window towards the hills of Oyo State, which had witnessed their entire transformation. Papa Adebayo, do you know what excites me most about our story? Papa Adebayo asked. What, my love? Mama Ngozi replied, that we prove that true love and unwavering faith always triumph over injustice and abandonment, and that when God closes a door, He always opens a palace. If this story touched your heart, like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell. Share in the comments what part moved you most, and click on the video appearing on your screen now to watch another exciting story that will make you cry with emotion. May God bless your life.